Can you tell us very quickly then just a bit about the process of making Terra as a wine?
Yeah, most of our focus it's outside. So we do a very, very long viticultural campaign that starts with the pruning. We work with the soft pruning technique that consists in following the lymphatic flow of the vine itself. So it's a very smooth way of pruning the vine. So the vines doesn't look like this, but it looks like a tree that it's supposed to be, right? So it's a very smooth technique. We do our first selection there. Then, of course, we implement a lot with our vineyards, depending on the necessities, because we don't do practices just because it's cool to do like a green manure or something. We just evaluate whether it is worth doing it, if it's needed, because we like a conservative approach, let's say. We intervene just when extremely necessary. But then, of course, we also work, we do our own compost. So there are a lot of, like I mentioned, the green manure to, again, implement the biodiversity. We work with food crop. So, and we also, in between the vines, we have a machine. It's a technical weed removal. We don't put any spraying or anything. It's just mechanical, and we free the vines from the underground weeds. And then, of course, during harvest, we have our second very big selection that consists of picking the very best grapes. And normally we work with a yield of 1 kilo, 1.5 kilograms per plant, so very low yields. Then luckily our processing is really fast. And our building, our cellar also facilitates a lot the entire processing, the entire transportation of the grapes. So as soon as the grapes are collected, they are already in a box, and in the box, in the tractor goes on the top of the cellar. There we have another machinery, a selection table, so there's an additional selection. Then we have the stammer and crusher placed outside on the roof of the building. And then the grapes enter in a very gentle way. They enter by gravity directly inside the vinification room. So here are two important, it sounds like very tiny details, but the details are those that make the difference when you make quality wine. So first is the fast processing. This means that we don't have the grapes pressing in the case. So we prevent a lot of sediments. This means that we don't need heavy clarifications of the must. We don't need to filter the wines afterwards. So that improves a lot, like a tiny detail that then makes really the difference in terms of filtration and also having a nice and clear fermentation. And then again, we have all the unprocessed raw material, the stems or the grapes that are not selected, they never enter the cellar. And this means that we heavily prevent having spoiled organisms that enter the vinification room. This allows us to work only with natural spontaneous fermentations that obviously work with very good yeasts. So although it's a new building and so on, we rather pay a lot of attention in what we bring inside rather than then analyzes the molds and the yeast that we have in the cellar. And then we have a maceration process, of course. So the grapes enter directly in the stainless steel tanks, and they follow a whole vertical process. So even the tanks are divided in two smaller tanks, and we have the maceration process on top. And then once the maceration is finished, and normally it lasts for almost 3 weeks, then the wine is wrecked directly in the below tank. So again, it's a vertical process without the use of any pump or anything. The wine is separated from the cup and the solid part. And then we move the wine inside a barrel, both second passage or even some new barriques, French oak. And there we have a spontaneous malolactic fermentation. And again, inside our cellar, we have no machineries that control the temperature. This is all done naturally by being underground, because our cellar is built completely inside the mountain. And then we also take advantage of the drainage systems that we built back in the 2000 by having airflow circulation inside the building. that allows us to have always fresh and clean air at cost zero, basically. So even in our aging room, it's a very smooth and natural process because we have the temperatures that allows us to not worry about it. And then we leave the wine inside the barrel. For us, especially in the red wines, we like to use the oak a lot. This doesn't mean that the wine needs to taste oaky at all. But of course, for having a clear natural stabilization of the wine, you always need the oak. So either you add additives or you have a little time in oak that prevents you to filter the wine or to stabilize the wine, because even the protein stabilization is done all inside the oak naturally. And then we simply take the wine from above so that the sediments just remain in the bottom, and they bottle the wine, just adding a very tiny amount of SO2 prior to bottling, and that's it.
It's a very meticulous process.